automatically, just FYI. So let me do a couple things here. I'll get the recording started and then we will go ahead and dive in. Alrighty, everyone. Let me go on video here for just a moment to say hello. Thank you all for being here today. We greatly appreciate your time. I just wanted to say hi on video, like I said, and I'm going to hop off video for the rest of the time. I've got a teenager home from summer, or for the summer, and he's playing video games and stuff. And I think we all know how that kind of eats up internet bandwidth. So to be sure that you all can see my slides and audio is okay the rest of the time, I'm going to hop off of the video. Please let me know in the Q&A box if you cannot see my slides or hear me for any reason. We'll make sure that we get that fixed. So as a quick reminder, we are recording today and you should receive a copy of that recording within the next 24 hours. It's usually pretty quick. And I really appreciate your time. We're going to be talking today about how to leverage LinkedIn for job searching, but also branding purposes, because LinkedIn is really important, not just for job seekers, but also just to help people stand out from the crowd, brand themselves effectively, and kind of make their mark in their industry. And so the topics and advice we're going to give you all today will be in a lot of ways for job seekers. Don't get me wrong, but it's also going to help you kind of establish yourself in your industry more and more over time, like as an expert in a certain area within your industry, et cetera, et cetera. So it will be for branding purposes too. And both of these, like the branding thing, is actually really important for your job search as well. I'm Hallie Crawford. I'm a proud partner with Georgia State. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. Our company is located here. And we have coaches all over the country, as well as resume writers. And the advice that we're going to give you is advice that we give to all of our clients. And LinkedIn is obviously a really big deal these days for a lot of different reasons. And we're going to help you kind of navigate different things there. I'm a certified career coach, speaker, and author, and I've been coaching and training since 2002. So it's actually been a long time. I have an undergraduate degree from Vanderbilt University and a grad degree from the University of Illinois, and have been an Atlanta native for the past 15 years. So thrilled to be here with you all today, and also work with Georgia State alumni. So let's talk first, before we dive into our agenda for today, et cetera, et cetera. LinkedIn is just critically important for so many different reasons. And it's not just because like during COVID, we had to leverage virtual tools for networking purposes and job searching. It's just a critically important tool and continues to be so for people to job search more effectively and for people's professional development. One of the reasons why it's critically important these days and becoming more so is if you look on the right-hand side of the slide here, is that more and more employers and recruiters are reporting that they're conducting their recruiting, so to speak, and trying to find candidates out there through LinkedIn. So instead of, in some cases, advertising a position, or maybe they will advertise the position, but they will also go out there and try to find candidates that they feel like kind of handpick people they feel would be really qualified and good. And it's interesting because years ago, this was before my son was born and he's 15, I attended was on a panel for an association, and also on the panel was a recruiter. And at that time, he even said, I spend like 8 hours a day on LinkedIn trying to find good candidates for, my clients. So we want people to be found on LinkedIn just as much as we want you to reach out to other people and make those connections too. And it's just becoming a huge resource for that and continues to grow that way. So it's important because of that. And the other reasons we want you to consider spending a little bit more time on LinkedIn. We're not saying you have to spend 8 hours. That was a recruiter. That was a unique situation. But we want you to pay a little bit more attention to it for these reasons listed on this next slide. It's going to help you brand yourself more effectively so that you stand out from the crowd and you become known for something. It helps position you as an expert. It can help you learn from other people and exchange ideas, stay in the know with like industry trends, ask questions, get advice from people. And it also obviously helps you strengthen and expand your network in a really good way. And for those of you who are looking to maybe stay put, you're not yet in job search mode, we have found that for people, especially who are in sales or customer facing type of role, that can help them with those client relationships and kind of outreach and staying in touch with people. So don't just think of LinkedIn as this is just for networking and that's it. And I need to expand my network and get to 500 and okay, then I'm done. It's for all of these other reasons as well that we really want you to consider. And this is why we feel it's really important to just spend a little bit more time on it. It could be, for example, that you dedicate and say to yourself, I'm going to spend an hour a week on LinkedIn, making sure that I'm checking in with my LinkedIn groups, checking in with my network, et cetera. Again, we're not looking for 8 hours a day, but if you're in job search mode actively, you may say to yourself, for example, beyond that 1 hour a week, it may be that you want to spend, 3 hours a week, 1 hour for 3 days a week on your search. Okay. Just as a quick reminder for those who just joined us, you will receive a copy of the recording from today automatically. So that will come to your email. And if anyone would like a copy of our slides, you can just email us at admin@createyourcareerpath.com. We'd be happy to share those with you. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about 3 kind of basic steps to leverage LinkedIn. And by the way, when we go through these steps, we would recommend that you actually kind of take them in the order that they're presented, because we're going to start out with things that we want you to do with your profile, some tips and tricks, making connections, and then thinking about sharing information, getting advice and information from people as well, kind of as you go. And we know that with LinkedIn, it can be really overwhelming. If you've noticed and you've been on LinkedIn lately, you've noticed that there's a lot more fields in there, a lot more going on, different areas that you can upload publications and all this other stuff. Please don't feel like, well, I'll say 2 things related to this first slide here, and then I'd like to do this first poll at the same time. So I'll go ahead and try to launch that. But please don't feel like your profile has to be like A, absolutely perfect, B, that you have to have every single section filled out on your profile, meaning that you have to have something in every single part of your profile, because you may not have articles that you've published. You may not have, volunteer work that you've participated in. So just know that while we want you to have a 100% complete profile, which is our first poll here, if you could fill that out for us, it's on the bottom right here of the slide, but also in your box there. What we mean by this is a 100% complete profile for your situation, and that you've got all of the information about you that would make sense for you to get that job and get in front of a prospective employer. It does not mean that you have to have every single section filled out. And the second thing we want to say related to this, and then we'll close out the poll here and I'll show you the results in a second, is that we know that updating your profile, it can feel overwhelming. And we want you to feel like just take it step by step. Do some work on it with your about section one day and come back to it the next day. Like take a little bit of time with it, because it's also not something that is like one and done and that's it. You want to think of your LinkedIn profile as kind of a living, breathing document that as you learn something new about what to do on it, or you have a work accomplishment, those are things that you can add to your profile over time. Okay, so let me publish the results. What we've got so far is 60% are saying no, they do not have a complete profile, which totally get it. That's why you're here and you're not alone. And then we've got 40% are saying yes, which is awesome. So keep the things in mind that we just talked about. And then let me get back to over here really quickly and talk about this slide here for just a second. These are the things, or kind of the steps that we want you to take or go in this order, if you will, of things to be thinking about. Make sure your profile is in really good shape first. Then let's start making new connections. Then let's start thinking about sharing information and participating in groups and getting in front of recruiters and employers and that kind of thing too. So you want to have your profile in good shape first. So let's talk about some things, kind of like some basics, but also things that are above and beyond that we think can help you stand out from the crowd. So first of all, if you take a look at the left-hand side of the slide, every once in a while still, this happens less frequently these days, but sometimes people will still ask us, do I really need a photo? You absolutely do need to have a photo because it makes a big difference if you read through the statistics on the left-hand side. If you're worried about ageism or anything like that, just make sure that your photo makes you look youthful. Wear something that is youthful. Color your hair a little bit if needed. We had one person on one of our webinars a few weeks ago say, he had grown a beard and he liked it, felt like it was cool, but it was really, really gray and it was making him look older. So there are things you can do to help you look more youthful, but you need to have that photo. The second thing that you can consider as we're moving into this digital age with, AI and all this other stuff going on, if you are job searching actively, one of the things that you could consider is adding a quick video introduction of yourself. You can link to it in your About section, and it can be something short and sweet. You want to keep it really, really simple and very short, but it could be like your elevator speech and a brief career history, something along the lines, for example, of if you are answering the question in an interview, tell us a little bit about yourself. Or if you're not in job search mode, it could be background about your company and the value that you guys provide. So a quick little video snippet we find can help you stand out from the crowd a little bit more and get in front of people, be more memorable. People don't connect with just a LinkedIn profile or a piece of paper. If you've got some kind of video, that can help a lot, okay? So with your profile, photo and video requirements, if you choose to try out a video, obviously you want to make sure that everything is professional and that you've got a clean colored background, all of that. Make sure that even though your headshot and your video is professional and formal, we want you to still be smiling and, like warm, come across as a human being too. And we do want you to have a branded image for your banner. And I'll show you what that means on the next slide, and we'll do our second poll. The branded image, they've got examples or templates now on LinkedIn that you can choose from. And you can go ahead and choose one of those for the moment while you're working on your branded banner. That's totally fine. It could be your company logo. If your company or organization is really big and has a great reputation in your industry and helps you stand out as like an expert, that you have that background, that would be fine. Another option, if you're in job searching mode and maybe looking to transition into something else, it could be a nature scene or a city skyline or something else relevant to your industry. And we really want you to brand it though, so you've got like a tagline on there that explains like who you are. And this is our example on the next slide. And I'll leave this up here for a moment while we do our next poll, because I'm really curious. I've found that more and more people are understanding that they need a branded banner like this, and they're putting something up there. And this is just one example. So if you look at this person's headshot here, professional, yet smiling, warm, all that good stuff. And this is a woman who is in pharmaceutical sales for the veterinary industry. And she's a regional director. And this is a branded banner that we created for her. So we do this for our clients, as well as search engine optimizing their profile, which I'll tell you about in a moment. So what we're talking about here in terms of branding is having some sort of like, job. It's not her job title here because we already have that here and that would be redundant. But basically, who she is. She's in veterinary professional services and she's a leader within her organization and industry. And then we created this tagline for her so that right away, someone is thinking of you as this type of person. Again, LinkedIn isn't just about selling you. I mean, of course it is that, but it's not just about selling you. It's about creating like a feeling, an image, so to speak, of who you are and what you bring to the table. And all of this stuff, including your headshot, helps with your brand. So that's what we're talking about here. And some of the things you need to think about with your profile as well, and we'll talk about this kind of throughout today, is one of the places that you want to search engine optimize is in your header right here underneath your name. This is one of the places that employers and recruiters would be searching within this box to be able to find you. And you want to make sure that you've got the right keywords in this section here. And we also want you to use all of the characters that are in this section under your header as well, because that can help you with search engine optimization too. Okay, so let's go ahead and publish our result of our poll. And we've got 60% who do not. So this is one of the first things that you want to start working on. And the people that do, that's fantastic. You may want to think about tweaks or changes. One of the things we find that some clients don't do is they may not have like this cool kind of tagline that they've added to their banner, not just like their job title or whatever. And we like that a lot because again, it's creating that feeling, so to speak, of, you know, who you are, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So thanks for participating in that second poll. And this is what we want you to be thinking about with your branded banner. So the other thing that we find that clients either have forgotten about or may not do as well, and so we always like to bring this up, is that box at the top there where you can add and make public your contact information and then also customizing your URL. So we'll go step by step here. So starting on the left, it's a really good idea to make sure your contact information is completely visible and public. Sometimes people will have like their email address in there, but they forgot to put their phone number in there or they didn't make it visible. And we would like people to be able to contact you and make it as easy as possible on them. So if you can make sure and double check your contact information is not only in there, but it's public and visible, that would be good. If anyone is concerned about privacy with putting out their cell phone number, you can always get like a Google Voice number that can help with that. So we totally get that sometimes there's a concern there. Google Voice is a free service that you can use to give yourself a phone number that will help kind of maintain that privacy, if you will. The second thing we want you to do is we definitely want you to customize your URL. This isn't a life or death thing. If you don't, it's not a big deal. It's not like it's going to ruin your chances. But because we do want you to have your URL on your resume and in the header at the very top of your resume, it'll look a little bit nicer if it's got your name in it and it's a little bit less of the gobbledygook. It's shorter and sweet. The other thing we want you to do on the right-hand side of this slide is we want you to have a standard email signature line that goes along with your email that you're using for job search purposes that has all of your contact information in there, and put a live link to your LinkedIn inside of that email signature line so that people can find you. Have it be text only in your resume header and your cover letter header, because sometimes live links can kind of throw off those ATS scanners, and we don't want that to be a problem. So it's better to have just text only in those areas. But it's a really good idea to have the signature line in your email, because how many times, right, have you maybe had a call with someone or you're trying to find someone's contact information and you're going through your email, just like I will do sometimes too. And if you can't find their contact information, it's like, oh, you know, it's frustrating. So this is another little nugget we find that a lot of our clients have not done or forget to do that can really help with your job search. Next, let's talk about, related to your profile, your about section. And that's the section that's right underneath your header. We want you to have a good, like robust about section. That doesn't mean we want it to be 10 paragraphs. Like 2 paragraphs is plenty and fine, but we want you to make sure that you're branding yourself effectively in that about section. Okay. Most people do not have a solid brand. It's not as clear as it should be. And we really want you to think about that. Sorry, everybody. So that you're really branding yourself effectively. Let me get my dog. Hold on. Okay, thanks for your patience. Things about working from home and working remotely, as we all know. So one of the things that we want to think about and make sure that you're doing or thinking about as you're creating your about section is making sure that in there you are talking about and demonstrating or articulating the value that you're able to consistently deliver to those people that you serve. And in this case, for job searching, a prospective employer. So really make sure that your about section answers that question, so to speak. And the other thing that we want you to do in your about section is making sure that you don't just talk about your past experience, your education, and your strengths, but also make sure that you're talking a little bit about your soft skills. Like, do you have a really strong work ethic? Are you really detail oriented, for example? Are you a great, like, strategic thinker and big picture type of person, or great at being a mentor focused leader? All of these types of things are going to help you stand out from the crowd. So don't just focus on, well, I've got X number of years of experience and yada, yada. Show them and talk to them, like kind of round out your brand and who you are as a person and as a professional, so that, again, it's more memorable and they're more willing to hire you. When recruiters and employers are interviewed about, like, what is the most, or what are their top criteria for looking for a prospective candidate, they always say soft skills. Like, because if you think about it this way, as a prospective employer, they can't teach you to be more detail oriented necessarily, or a great leader. I mean, obviously you can take classes and that type of thing too, but it's much easier to train you on their software, or, financial systems, or whatever it is, versus these soft skills. So just make sure that you reference them in your about section. And when you're working on your about section, part of what could be in there is your elevator pitch. And these are two examples of elevator pitches that we like. As a quick reminder, everybody, you will receive the recording from today. And if for any reason you would like a copy of the slides, it's admin@createyourcareerpath.com. You can email us and we will send those to you. It's listed at the bottom of each of our slides. But these are two elevator pitches that we just like and we think are really good, because it explains who they are. It talks about their expertise and experience and what types of results they bring to their clients. Now, we don't want you to stop in your about section with just your elevator pitch and that's it. But this can be a good kind of foundational piece to helping you start to update it and get it in the right spot. By the way, if you look at this next slide, when you're working on your about section, your writing choice should mirror your field. So for example, if you're in a more customer facing or human services type of profession like we are, you can focus on and use a more narrative summary throughout your about section. But if you're in a little bit more of a formal field, numbers based, or just more formal kind of traditional industry, you may be talking in third person at the beginning, but we really like for people to have at least like one narrative sentence at the end in their about section, so that you're talking to the reader a little bit more. LinkedIn is supposed to and can be a little bit more personal and a little less formal from your resume. That's part of the point of it. We want the person reading your profile to really connect with you. And the other things we want you to take a look at in your profile are your experience section. Obviously, that's a really big one. Two things that you can consider adding into your experience section are testimonials from your work. So we really want people to have at least 3 recommendations at the bottom of their LinkedIn profile, so that you can use them as content in different places. And one of the places is you can add a recommendation phrase or an excerpt into your experience section, so that it doesn't get buried at the bottom there in case they don't get to the bottom of your profile. But also, it's a third party endorsement of you. So it helps make sure they're highly visible. So we like that as an additional little tip. And then second, you can add artifacts, quote unquote. I think this is kind of a funny word, the way they describe this as an artifact, but an artifact that you could add into your experience could be an article that was published that you were quoted in, or that you wrote, a graphic, a chart, or analysis that you provided for a client or customer, or a PowerPoint presentation. So try to be creative here and think about things that you could add into your experience section, keeping in mind, obviously, that some things you can't just publish publicly. You've got to be careful about confidentiality with your clients and customers, et cetera, et cetera. But this, again, can help you stand out from the crowd and show people this is what it would be like if I hired this person. and kind of how they think and what their work product is like. Finally, with your profile, after you've worked on the different things that we've been talking about, you want to make sure that you do certain things to really finalize it and kind of button it up. So a couple things here is make sure that you use keywords that employers and recruiters would look for to find someone like you with your expertise and experience. As part of that, and it's basically honestly kind of the same thing, search engine optimizing your header, your about section, and then at the very bottom, when you've got your skills section there, we want you to make sure that your top 3 skills are the most important ones that you would want people to see and kind of search for you on. But it is really important these days, for better or for worse, because it can take a little bit of time, to make sure that your skills in there are really buttoned up and like at least your top 20 to 30 skills are in the right order, that they're the most important ones, because this is part of how a prospective employer and recruiter can find you, because they'll be searching in that skills section as well. We want you to get recommendations, 3 as a starting point, as we said, and make sure that you go through your settings, everybody, with a fine-tooth comb, because sometimes we haven't looked at our settings in a while, and LinkedIn changes things all the time. I feel like when I hop in there, every few days, it feels like every other week there's something new or different or changed. So it's definitely worthwhile to go through your settings and make sure at a bare minimum that everything that you want to be public and visible is in that direction, and make sure that you've got the box clicked that you want to be viewed by employers and recruiters so that you're open to new opportunities. And there's different kind of tips and tricks there that we can help you with through coaching if you're interested in working with us and feel like you need to take this to the next level. Tip number 2 is to make connections. We want you to expand your network to 500 plus. That's kind of a magic number that people are looking for these days. So go through your phone, connect with everybody that's in there within reason. Connect with your alumni association, with your Georgia State Alumni Association and their LinkedIn group online. Make sure that you're part of that group, you're leveraging it effectively. Check in and connect with coworkers and past and present jobs. Check in and connect with friends and family, and check in with industry leaders as well. And we also want you to connect with or join LinkedIn groups. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more as we go here. But LinkedIn groups, industry specific groups, as long as they're ones that are a little bit more active and kind of viable and useful. So you want to be picky about those. We would recommend your Georgia State LinkedIn group first, because those are going to be really, really warm connections, people that are more willing to give you time, connect with you, answer questions, et cetera, et cetera. So we want you to start there and leveraging that to start making additional new connections, because those are people that you might be able to connect with, but set up quick phone calls with and do some informational interviews. Okay. So after you've gone through your phone, et cetera, start to branch out to other people that you'd like to know or connect with and maybe do a quick phone call with. This would be university alumni, like we just said. It could be influencers within your industry. We have actually had people make really good networking connections within their LinkedIn groups. So pay attention to people who seem to be more involved with their LinkedIn groups and kind of participate a little bit more, because those are people that you may want to reach out to and ask to have a quick chat with. People who are naturally more engaged with and involved in these groups usually tend to be like really good networkers, people that are open to that. And it is okay to accept connection requests from people, especially if you're working towards and need to get to that 500 plus kind of bar, if you will, as long as they look reputable and it makes sense for you to do so. And then after you get to that 500, you can slow it down a little bit, but we do want to get to that point if you can, as quickly as you can. Making connections for job seekers in particular. A few things that we want you to do on this next slide here. Obviously, we want you to use LinkedIn to set up job alerts. But another thing we suggest, if you look at this slide here and number 2 on the list, follow companies that you're interested in, because they may post about hiring, or if nothing else, if they don't post about job openings, you're going to be able to like get a little bit more background about what's going on with them and kind of stay in the know so that you find ways to stand out from the crowd, get in front of a hiring manager or recruiter, and are more prepared for a prospective interview there. Another thing you can do is you could try to identify who the hiring manager is or the recruiter for a certain position, and you can express your interest in that particular position. Are they going to always respond to you? No, absolutely not. This is like a law, or, it's kind of like sales where you'll get a certain percentage that respond to you. But what we believe is that if nothing else, you got in front of that person and let them know that you're interested and your name came across their desk, so to speak. So we want you to do this in a professional but assertive way to kind of reach out and say, I'm really interested in this position. And for example, here's why I'm qualified. This next bullet point here is very similar to above. You can connect with people in HR and talent acquisition or the hiring manager and at least reach out to them. There's a way that you can search for hiring managers and people who are actually actively hiring right now by typing in I'm hiring in the search box at the top of LinkedIn and selecting and looking for people that you would like to apply for their jobs. You can find recruiters on LinkedIn, and we find that once a month, give or take, or every few weeks, if you turn off and on your being open to being contacted by recruiters, that can help pop you up closer to the top of the list. So it'll be like you're a fresh candidate. So there's lots of good tips and tricks and additional things we've got in our LinkedIn guide. If you're interested in that, please feel free to reach out to us. Ways to use AI within LinkedIn and as part of that with your search are in there as well. And we do have people that will ask us, and we'll take a look at the bottom right-hand side of this slide here before we keep going, that, is premium worth it? We do feel like it's worth it. They usually give you a free month anyway, so you can kind of try it out. But we like it because it gives you the ability to have unlimited messaging versus your capped at a certain number per day. You also, with premium, you can conduct a lot more searches to find the right people that you want to connect with, and you can leverage that who has viewed my profile feature as well too, which we really like for people to leverage and use. When you're thinking about making connections, if we take a look at this next slide and continue kind of with this second tip here, couple of things that we find our clients don't always either do as effectively as we want them to or at all. And it's basically, if you want to contact a second or third connection, make sure that you ask for an introduction from the person who's in between the two of you. And make sure that you ask them to copy you on that connection or that invitation or message, because then the ball can be in your court. You've got the information, that other person's information. They're going to be more likely to respond to you because there's that accountability, if you will, and you are able to follow up that with that person as needed too. And if you're ever or when you are making connections with people and reaching out to them, make sure that you always include a note inside that invitation why you would like to connect with that person. They're a fellow Georgia State alum, whatever it is that makes sense. You met them at an event, or simply that, I'm very interested in learning more about your organization. Could I set up a quick phone call with you, or would you mind if I emailed you a few questions? Don't just send that standard template, if you will. And as part of this, make sure that obviously you've got the LinkedIn app on your phone and that you have those notifications turned on so that if you do get a message from someone, you can respond in a timely fashion, because that's going to be really, really important. And we already talked about most of these, but what I'll say with this top right hand side here is when you're asking a first connection to maybe introduce you to a second connection, have that person find out from the other person what's the best way to connect with them. Would they prefer LinkedIn or would they prefer email? And remember that with LinkedIn, that first connection can send an email to, or a message, to the other connection, and they can copy you on it as well. So it can be a little bit of both, okay? And you can also have a copy of that message on like that LinkedIn message, both of you can be connected. So make sure that you ask them to do that in advance so that it's more active for you. And like I said, you can have the ball in your court as well. Okay. Let's talk about this next one. We talked about, when you make or send a connection request, you don't want to send the default LinkedIn message. And these are some examples on the right-hand side here of things that you could say to someone that you put in your connection request. Like, I recently read your article on X and appreciate your point of view, and I'd like to connect. I enjoyed meeting you, or whatever it is. If you're connecting with Georgia State alum, you could say, I found you in the Georgia State alumni LinkedIn group. I would love to connect with you and stay in touch. And if you would be willing to chat with me for a few minutes so I can learn a little bit more about your organization, that would be great. So informational interviews and connecting with people that way, kind of live over the phone or in person, or even just on LinkedIn, can be a really helpful way, not just to expand your network, but get advice and suggestions about how to conduct your job search more effectively. So a couple of other things, make sure that as a way to kind of keep up with your network and not just expand your network, but stay in front of people, use LinkedIn notifications for professional achievements, to ask people questions, for advice about certain things. If you gained a certification, or if you found an article that you really liked, put that in there, because the more, within reason, the more you are posting to your feed, the more you're going to stay in front of other people. Now, we don't want you to do this like 5 times a day. That's way too much. You'll start to become like noise, right? But if you post something new, like once or twice a week in your LinkedIn notifications, that can help you stay in front of people. We want you to make sure you check and respond to messages at least weekly. If you are in active job search mode, you want to change this to be daily. Create those new connections, join groups, and write recommendations for others as well. Don't have it just be that you're asking other people for stuff. It's really helpful if you ask others, how can I help you? And write recommendations for other people as well. Let's talk a little bit more about LinkedIn groups, because we have heard from people that some LinkedIn groups are a little bit passive, and they're a little bit more about just like a placeholder for people. So we want you to try to find not only your alumni group, but industry specific groups as well, groups that are a little bit more active, and know those people within those groups who are the most active, because those are people that you could connect with. And it could be 2 or 3 people. It doesn't have to be 20 people all at once that you're trying to identify. But this is a way to establish new connections within your industry. We have had recruiters tell us, for example, that they will try to find candidates within their LinkedIn groups, because they know that those people care a little bit more about their professional development, and they've narrowed those people down to people within that particular industry as well. And as part of this networking process, if you can set up a meeting or a video coffee chat with people that you'd like to connect with, you can conduct informational interviews with them and get their advice about their job search. So for example, about your job search, sorry. So for example, you might ask them a little bit more about, what are the keywords that your company or organization is kind of hot on right now? What are some of the buzzwords I should be considering? Do you have any advice for how to best put my best foot forward in my search? Those types of things. This is where those informational interviews can come in really handy as part of leveraging these LinkedIn groups. Couple of other things that we'd like you to suggest is using that who has viewed my profile feature. Use this feature to make new connections, see who has been looking at you, and reach out to them and ask them if you could set up a quick chat with them. But it's also a way to help you identify who a possible hiring manager is or recruiter. If, for example, you have just applied for a job and you see someone has viewed you that next day or that same day, that can give you a clue to, ooh, this is someone that I may want to reach out to and try to get in front of. And in terms of our third step, let's talk about that next. And this is sharing information with your network, again, to try to stay in front of people a little bit more and remind them that you're in active job search mode. You can write or share articles. And if you do that, share your insights with it, like why you're sharing that article. You could share creative ideas or problem solving advice. The articles and the things that you share, they should be concise and worth reading. They should help you kind of stand out from the crowd. And part of why we like this is it can help you build credibility and helps you build your brand. We are not looking for you to start becoming an author and writing articles like 5 times a week. Even if you're just sharing an article, for example, with your thoughts that you think is timely, useful, etc., once a week, that can be incredibly helpful as a way to stay in front of people in your feed. And we talked about LinkedIn groups already, and I would love to do our third and last poll because I am really curious about this one. How many people actively participate in their LinkedIn groups? Please don't be shy. If you do not, it's okay to say so. What we have found still with our clients is that 9 times out of 10, they're like, LinkedIn groups. I think I'm part of one, but I'm not sure which one it is. And I need to go back and look and check on it. So again, we want you to look at your Georgia State alumni group first and start to get active in that and commit to participating. Like it may be simply that you get the weekly kind of feed from your LinkedIn group once a week to kind of see who's been participating, et cetera. But we would recommend that at least once a week you log into your group and kind of see what's going on, ask a question, identify people that you might like to connect with. And so far with our poll, we've got 80% are saying no and 20% are saying yes, they do. So yay for that 20%. That's awesome. We hope that it's been helpful for you so far. If you find that the group that you're in right now is not as active as you would like, it may be that you want to kind of check out a couple of different ones, but start with one. Start with your alumni group first. Let's leverage that at the beginning, and then you can move on to industry-specific groups kind of over time to make it reasonable for you. We already talked about making sure that when you share articles and posts, you're not blowing up the feed. And again, you don't have to post every single day, but make sure that you share like once a week and share things that are truly interesting to you. And as part of that, write a few sentences about why you're sharing that article or post so that it's not just a kind of passive thing, but let people know like what your thoughts are, because those are types of things that, again, it's going to show up on your profile as well as your feed. And a prospective employer and recruiter can kind of look through those things to get a sense of, how you think, how you work, et cetera, et cetera. And we talked about this a little bit already, but the other things that you could share in your feed could be some of these artifacts too. So if you spoke at a conference recently, like I did a couple of weeks ago, post that PowerPoint presentation if it would be okay for you to do so. In some cases, you may want to go ahead and create like a quick portfolio or what we call a career one sheet about your leadership philosophy, like additional information that can help kind of round out your brand. And you can post this into your feed, but also in the featured section of your LinkedIn profile as well. So it's something that's a standalone item that is there and doesn't move, and it's right at the top of your feed because it's something that you really want people to notice and see. So this is where you can get a little bit creative with the different things that you share on your LinkedIn profile that can help you with networking and stand out. If you feel like you need any help with this, this is the same email address to get the slides from today. I'm happy to do a quick strategy session with you to talk with you a little bit more about how we can help you if we're a good fit, to learn about coaching and give you some advice as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us at admin@Create Your Career Path to get the slides, etc., and set that up with me. And I do want to take a few moments here before we close out for today, before the top of the hour, to answer any questions that anyone has. Please feel free to put those in the Q&A box, and we'll get to that in just a second. We'll give you a moment to kind of noodle on questions if you have any. But I do want you to write down, take out your pen and paper and write down, if you would, like one action step that you will take in the next week as a result of being here today. Join your Georgia State alumni LinkedIn group, not Emory, obviously, I apologize for that. Georgia State alumni LinkedIn group, that would be one of the first things that we would recommend you do. The second thing, if you're like, okay, I'm really busy, I'm not going to have a ton of time for this in the next week or two, we want you to do that and then search engine optimize your profile as well. That is another really important step that we feel is really critical for job seekers too. So if we're keeping it short and sweet and simple, those are the two things we want you to be thinking about. And remember that this is something that we don't expect you to do like every single, second of the day. Take your time with updating your LinkedIn profile. Have a goal for yourself of like, 1 or 2 action steps for every week, and get help with this, whether it's a coach like us, a friend or family member to help you with your about section, et cetera, et cetera. Having a second pair of eyes on your profile can help enormously. All right, cool. So we've got one question so far. So let me go ahead and share that and respond to that. If you are currently employed in job searching, what is an alternative to selecting I am open to work on LinkedIn? Thanks. This is a really great question. I appreciate it because this is something that gets asked by a lot of our clients. There are 2 ways to let employers and recruiters know that you're open to work on LinkedIn. There's the highly visible, like I call it a swoosh on your photo, on your headshot, and that would be very public. And so if you're concerned about your employer finding out that you're searching, you do not want to choose that option. There's also a private option where you can just select that, yes, I'm open to being contacted by employers and recruiters, but it's not going to be publicly known on your profile there. The likelihood that your employer would find out that you're searching is very, very low if you do select that option. So if you want to keep things more private, do not use the swoosh. And you can slowly update your LinkedIn profile if you're concerned that they may be keeping an eye on your profile and wondering why you're suddenly updating a bunch of things too. That's another way to handle that as well, to be careful with it. Just kind of go slowly with it. Hopefully that answers as a start. But it's a great question, and it's definitely something that is on the, LinkedIn is trying to actively sort through and figure out and make sure that people are searching, everything is incredibly confidential because it's a big deal. You're very welcome. No problem. Any other questions? And I'll go on video here for just a second so that before we close out, you can see me. I appreciate your patience, everyone, with a little bit of noise in the background. My office happens to have the dog door in my house. And so when he goes in and out, sometimes it makes a little bit of noise. So thank you for your patience there. And just by the way, too, please note down our email address. I'll put it in the Q&A box right now, too, just so you have it. It's on the slide here, because I'm happy to answer any other questions. If you think of a question later on that you would like to ask, I'd be happy to answer. So please feel free to reach out at any time. And if it's something that I can answer, I'm going to put this in the Q&A box right now. If I can answer pretty easily, I will obviously happy to do that. So please feel free to reach out anytime. I just put that in the chat box or the Q&A box. All right, if we don't have any other questions, just as a reminder, you will get a copy of our recording from today. We greatly appreciate your time. I know working through LinkedIn, and again, because there's so many different kind of features there and options and boxes, it can feel overwhelming. Just take it step by step and say to yourself, okay, I'm going to get the basics done. I'm going to get my header and my banner. I'm going to get my about section and my experience and skills sections done. Those are the top 5 we want you really focus on. And then from there, you can start playing around with some of our other suggestions and options. All right. Thanks for your time, everyone. If you have any other questions, as I said, please feel free to email us at admin@createyourcareerpath.com. And please join us on our next webinar that is coming up next month. A notification will go out from Dave Cohen so that you know the date and time and all of that. But I'm looking forward to joining you in our next webinar. And we hope you have a great summer. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.